listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. I'm Alysa Lucas, and friends, it's like my birthday is here early. My mother often shares articles and quotes with me about friendship because she knows how much it means to me. And now I think she sends it to me because she knows it'll help the podcast or I can post it on social media. I really appreciate those things. But for Valentine's Day, I arrived home from work. It was a long day, and I found an Amazon box. And I was like, I don't think I ordered anything, but hey, presents, as my nephew used to say when he was younger, presents for Mason, right? So presents for Alysa. And inside was Kayleen Schaefer's new book, Text Me When You Get Home, The Evolution and Triumph of Modern Female Friendships. I was so excited to see a book focusing on friendship, and I absolutely devoured it. The book immediately spoke to me because A, anything and anyone trying to bring friendship into the light is something and someone I need to learn more about. And B, so many points that Kayleen made in the book really spoke to me. My friends mean the world to me, and I don't think I should have to give them up for anything. Marriage, work, a podcast, so on. No one should have to give up friendships because they're seen as invalid, disposable, or unnecessary. Shouldn't we decide if a relationship is valid and worthy and necessary? We all deserve to be happy, healthy, and safe, and friends help and encourage us to do these things and to be happy, healthy, and safe. So I'm so excited to welcome Kayleen to Best Forevers. What a day it was for me to sit down with her to talk about her wonderful book and about friendship. So before we get into the interview with Kayleen, let me tell you a little bit more about Text Me When You Get Home. Text me when you get home. Tell me you're safe. I'm always here for you. Let's keep talking. For too long, women have been told that we are terrible at being friends, that we can't help being cruel or competitive, or that we inevitably abandon each other for romantic partners. But we are rejecting those stereotypes and reclaiming the power of female friendship. In Text Me When You Get Home, journalist Kayleen Schaefer interviews more than 100 women about their BFFs, soulmates, girl gangs, and queens while tracing this cultural shift through the lens of pop culture. Our love for each other is reflected in Abby and Lana, Issa and Molly, hashtag Squad Goals, and the claim of Girls Trip and Big Little Lies and Galentine's Day. Schaefer also includes her own history of grappling with a world that told her to rely on men before she realized that her true source of support came from a strong tribe of women. Her personal narrative and celebration of her own relationship weaves throughout the evolution of female friendships on screen, a serious look at how women have come to value one another and our relationships. Text Me When You Get Home is a validation that has never existed before. A thoughtful, heart-soaring, deeply reported story of how women are taking a stand for their friendships and not letting go. Friends, I think you can see why I'm on board with this. Here's me talking with Kayleen Schaefer. Thank you so much, Kayleen, for joining us on Best Forevers. I'm so excited.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Oh, yes, this is a very exciting day for me as someone who geeks out over friendship. But I was wondering if we could start, if you could tell us a little bit about your book, Text Me When You Get Home, The Evolution and Triumph of Modern Female Friendships, and what led you to write that book?
Two things really inspired me to write the book. The first was that I looked at myself in my early 30s and realized that I wasn't the same woman anymore who had been I was raised in Texas, and I had looked at other women in my younger years as competition in high school, for who could have a boyfriend or be the prettiest in pictures or get the best grades. And then that continued in my early working years as I started out in my career. And I just sort of thought like, oh, I can't be friends with other women. I have to set myself apart. Yeah. And then I realized in my early 30s that my female friends were actually my main support system, and they were how I got all my strength. And so it was a huge shift, and I wanted to look at that shift personally, but I also thought that that shift was also happening culturally. And then the second part was just that I knew that I felt that way about my female friends, and a lot of women that I also knew or talked to did, but no one was really saying that it was cool to feel that way about your female friends. Yeah. So I wanted to validate that. I wanted to write a book that validated our friendships, to sort of make women feel like, yes, it is fine to value this relationship as much as any other relationship in your life. It's a great thing, actually.
Yeah.
So those were the two things that kickstarted writing the book.
Yeah, and my mom actually bought me this book and sent it to me for Valentine's Day.
Oh, that's so nice.
Knowing that I'm all about friendship, and when I read it, it really resonated with me as well. I do think that we focus on this, there's like this societal competition, and I don't understand why we can't lift each other up instead of being in competition. And I felt that in middle school and high school and even sometimes now. But my friendships are amazing, and it just reminded me of a couple things. So there's, I'm not sure if you've seen this documentary. It's called Misrepresentation. It's about media coverage of women. And there is someone in it that says, you can't be what you can't see. And, and so like, that's really important for women of color or women in general, getting positions in media or being in media. But as I read through your book, I also felt that was the case, that we can't love on our friends if we don't see women loving on their friends, right?
Absolutely.
So that really spoke to me. And what's really funny is last night I went to about an hour away to see my friends. And as I was getting into my car and had an hour drive back, my best friend Kate goes, text me when you get home.
Oh,
and I was like, she doesn't even know the interview is tomorrow. She knows that this is happening. But I was like, so I just feel like it's something that really resonates. And I'm so glad that you had those thoughts and wanted to put it together, and so happy that I can also share this book with other people, talk about it in my classes. And
that's amazing.
Yeah. So one of the things, though, as I was reading was that I wondered if the importance of friendship is developmental. And so I was wondering what your thoughts were about that. So for example, I wonder if when we're younger, we might participate in potentially bad behaviors in terms of friends, like as it might relate to competition, and that we learn over time how much our friends mean to us. So I was wondering, do you think that discovery of how important friends are is developmental?
I think it's part of maturing for sure. But I also think that we do a real disservice to young women by how pervasive this idea of mean girls is. It's just, even honestly, up until I was writing the book, I just thought like, well, girls are mean up to a certain age. Like, that's just the way we have to be, which just isn't true. Girls are no meaner or nicer than anyone else. And boys are just as mean and just as nice. We're all varied people. And just to put that stereotype on young girls, I think is a real disservice to how they are able to see their peers and how they feel like they should act in school. Like, we're almost saying this is what we expect of you at this point. And they hear that and they think like, oh, okay, that's how I'm supposed to be when I'm in school. I'm a mean girl. And I think that is part of the issue, like what you were talking about that representation. For the most part, that's how teen girls are represented. Yeah. Which, isn't maybe even how they feel, but they sort of see this stereotype and think like, well, this is absolutely what has to be happening.
Yeah, and I wonder if sometimes we might actually see girls being mean because they believe that they have to be, right?
Yeah.
Or that even behavior that isn't that quote unquote mean might be viewed as such by other women, girls, boys, men, whatever the case might be, because of that stereotype. And so it really does a disservice to girls and women, but also how we might be viewed by other people in society and how they might approach us, or how they might, well, she seems like she's mean, she's not going to be this, or this, or I don't want to be friends with her, or I wouldn't want to hire this person. I mean, it just seems like it could...
It's putting girls in a box that they don't have to be in, but it's saying like, this is your place. You're a mean girl. Just stay over here. I interviewed the writer, Megan Abbott, who writes these amazing books about teen girls. And she was like, it's almost just dismissive. She's like, it's just like a little pat on the head. Like, oh, you mean girl.
Yeah.
It's not like you psycho or like something really terrible. Like mean is just sort of this light word. And then girl, of course, is dismissive. It's just almost a way of being like, we'll deal with you later, basically.
When you are a nasty woman, perhaps, I don't know. It's like, what are they trying to say? Like, what is going to happen?
You grow into that.
Yeah. Well, and it makes me wonder, though. These expectations that we have in society, it is very much placed in a box. And here's the thing: most people don't like being placed in a box because it is so restrictive. Mm-hmm. But then we start to feel like we have to behave in these certain ways because of it. So I wonder, is there a way to change the expectations or the stereotypes we have? How can we change that? Right? How can we change the view?
Well, I think the first way to do it is just to realize that this is a stereotype. Like there's nothing behind this other than a stereotype. There's no science behind this idea that girls are somehow mean. Like it's just a stereotype. That's all it is. So you first have to look at that. But then you just have to get girls to talk to each other about their problems instead of, when I was younger, like if I was invited to a party and a friend maybe wasn't, like I would just not tell her. Yeah. And, you sort of have to, it's hard, but you have to bridge that conversation and be like, I'm going to so-and-so's party. I wish you were coming, or so-and-so's having a party, but I'm not going because you weren't invited. It's just, you just have to open those conversations, which is really hard, even as adults, to have those friendship conversations because we're just not taught how to talk to our friends. There's a million stories about what do you do if he doesn't text back in an hour or whatever, but there's no stories about like, how do you tell your friend that she hurt your feelings?
Yeah, we don't have a script for it. So then if we don't have a script for it, then it's like we have to be quiet about it.
Right, and then we just shut it off and no one knows what to say and we just revert back to these stereotypes.
I would think that it's also in conjunction with another stereotype that girls and women are supposed to be nurturing and kind, like the sugar and spice and everything nice, and that's what girls are made of. So it's a real, you have the mean girl and you have the nice girl. So it's like, I think that comes to a head when not being able to talk about conflict or other types of issues, right?
Yeah, it's hard. And I think there's a little bit in the book about this. I think that's what's led to the word frenemy, which is almost exclusively applied to female friendships.
Yeah.
And that's what's behind it. This feeling that we have to act like everyone is our friend, even though we may be in competition. Like we may want to beat this other girl in the race or, for class president or whatever. And but it's just not seen as feminine to just be outright competitive against her. And, that's not mean. Like men are allowed to compete against each other and go for beers afterwards. Yeah. And I think women could be the same way, but instead there's this idea that we're like being fake nice to each other or, afraid to compete full out and do it under this veneer of like politeness. Maybe? Yeah. I don't know, but the frenemy concept is interesting to me and how it's almost exclusively applied to women.
Yeah, because I don't think I've ever heard it applied to boys or men.
Yeah, and they're not like, this bro's my frenemy. That doesn't happen.
No, that doesn't, it's just like, we're not dudes or we're not cool, And
right, exactly.
I do think like it's an extension of applying these concepts that it's an extension of this feminine, that you can't be in competition because that's a masculine thing to do. And if women or girls are masculine, then they're bitches or bossy or men or lesbian. Like there's so many things that people would say. But one of the things that I would sort of note from what I understand about friendship is that there is another stereotype or another sort of expectation that is placed on female friendships, and that is female friendships are more intimate and close and valuable than men's friendships. Like, so there is some research that we talk about in my classes that would say that women's friendships are the right way because they're intimate, and that men's friendships are not, so then they're done the wrong way. So I was wondering, through your experience or through your research and writing, what did you come across? And you might have just said, I'm focusing on women, but I was wondering, do you have any thoughts about male friendships in conjunction with women's friendships?
Well, I mean, I would hesitate to say across the board that
Mm-hmm.
male friendships can't be as intimate or they can't be as close, because of course they can. We don't want to stereotype those either. But I do know that when several men who have read the book have said to me afterwards, like, gosh, like, I sort of wish I was a woman. I wish I could have those friendships.
Yeah.
And I was surprised to hear them say that, but also sort of like, well, I guess that makes sense if I do, think of your friendships as a little more distant than a typical close female friendship. And, I asked most of the women that I interviewed, what's different about being with a group of all women versus, being with your female and male friends. And they just said there's something there. Like, it's this feeling, it's a little bit intangible, but it's just this feeling. And I think it mainly just comes down to like safety and security and empathy and just feeling understood, because like is with like. I mean, there's just something there that starts that bond.
Yeah, I wrote down sort of the words that indicated to me, like based on the title of the book, Text Me When You Get Home. And then the whole book was that it's about love and safety and a connection. And that a lot of times we do that through talking, through communication. Yeah. But like we had talked about before, that there is some difficulty having harder conversations and friendships because we don't really talk about it. So, I have a question. I'm actually going to skip ahead because I think that relates, and then I'll come back. So what do you think about us focusing on, it seems like we need to focus more on problems and focusing on problems that can occur in friendship, that they should be in the forefront. So I love celebrating friendship. That's what my podcast is about. That's me. And that's my quote unquote, if you want to call it a brand, if you will. But it seems like that our society lets friendships drift. And you talk about that in the book. And that I think some of that comes with it being a voluntary friend, like a relationship that's voluntary, that we can choose to be friends with someone or choose not to be friends with them. And that we don't focus on friendships because in terms of how to cope with things, like we were talking about. So should we focus on maintaining friendships and developing scripts for having these difficult conversations and friendships?
Yeah, I mean, I think what's happening is, you're right. There's this notion in society that the friendships are disposable, right? Especially this was very true of like our mom's generation.
Yeah.
You moved on from your friends when you got married, and your focus was then on your romantic partner and your children. And it was very insular, and you didn't look to anyone outside that family unit for support. But I think that a big part of this is women are waiting until later to get married. So you have longer single, and where you do use your friends as your support system. And I think many women are looking at that, and when or if they do find a romantic partner and get married, or, live together, or start to rely on that romantic partner too, they're saying, it doesn't make any sense to give up this group of friends that I have used as my essential support, or as used part of my life support for so long, for so many years. So we're moving those friendships in, or we're moving them up, I guess, into the relationship, the core of relationships that do get us through this life. And life is tough. And I think women need all the support they can get.
Yeah.
So I don't know, that's sort of a roundabout answer, but I think women are themselves elevating how we think about these friendships, and they're saying, no, these aren't disposable. Like, maybe I thought that when I was younger, just because that's what I watched my mom do, or that's just what I heard, or, that's what I saw in the rom-com. I talk a little bit about the best friend in the rom-com and how she's there at the beginning, and then by the end of the movie, she's gone. Once the girl finds the guy, she's gone. And that's not real life anymore for most women.
Yeah.
They just, no matter how their life changes, they still rely on their friends. And that's what I found out. You may not be best friends with the same person you were best friends with in kindergarten or high school, or your college roommate, or even like the women you met at your first job, but you're still going to look around and depend on other women. I think most women are. I mean, that's what the women I talked to told me.
Yeah. And it just seems that there is, maybe when we're using your word, elevating these friendships to the core, when they might have been on the outskirts. Because I think that in family, we might also learn, well, we have a family event today, so you can't be with your friends, right? So that it does put friends on the outskirts.
That's true.
Or that it's like,
thought about that. That's funny.
That friendship is like, a way to help you get ready or to get into romantic relationships. So it's always, but yeah, there is a new sort of age group called emerging adulthood that goes to about 25, 28, where people are delaying getting married, they might be extending their schooling. They might not be having children yet. We know that's happening later. So that means friends are going to be more at the forefront. And then when you get to those sort of quote unquote obligations, you're like, why would I give you up? You're what I need each and every single day. And that sort of support that is given. And so I do think that when we elevate the friendships, that what we're seeing is that there's going to be hopefully more representation of friendship, because I think you do a really nice job in the book about showing sort of the media development, though, too, like how Broad City, here we have two friends, but friends never being the focus, or that the friend is gone, or whatever the case is. And so hopefully that means we're having more and more stories of friendship, and that through those stories, because it is real life, that we're going to learn more about how to maintain those relationships, or how to work through issues, or see real issues that friends go through, and not this expectation, this sort of BS sort of point of view of friendship that is based on these stereotypes. And I think I can't wait for it just to be nothing but friendship on my television and movies, right?
Yeah. I mean, I think part of that, what you're talking about, the shift in the stories we're seeing in pop culture, is because women are telling their stories for the first time. Like these stories are being created by women, and the stories that they think are interesting, the ones that they want to tell, are about their relationships with their female friends.
Yeah.
Which is really cool just to watch. And there's still far too few, women writers and directors and producers, but it's happening and it's changing. And so now I think that women are, in part at least, telling these stories will only help secure female friendship's place as an indispensable relationship.
And it is. And I think about all the things that we go through life, and life is hard, and there's so many changes and transitions, to just say at a certain point that my friends wouldn't be there anymore. I would be completely lost, right? Like,
Of course.
So there's not an expiration date on friendships, unless, of course, I always say we all deserve to be happy, healthy, and safe. And there are some friendships that don't work, or they can be toxic. But otherwise, if there's something that means something to you, then there shouldn't be an expiration date on it, right?
Right. Yeah, absolutely.
So one of the things, though, is that I have seen online in the Facebook groups I'm part of, and talking to other people, is that making friends as an adult can be pretty hard. Or it's maybe more difficult than being, play date when you're a kid, or you're like, well, you're my neighbor, so I have to play with you because my parents won't let me go further than down the block, or whatever the case is. So
you're location friendly.
Yeah, exactly. It's just, who does my mom say I have to be friends with? That's my friend. So what advice would you give women who are having difficulty finding their tribe?
Well, I would say that there is a danger also in fetishizing this idea of a tribe or a best friend. And we don't want to do that. We don't want to make that a status symbol either. You don't have to have a squad or a tribe. you should, if there's one person you relate to best, if there's three, like whatever floats your boat.
Yeah.
But the key to friendship is, it's pretty standard. It's just repeated interaction.
Yeah.
But so that's why, the person you are always in the same yoga class with, or, the coworker, or the person you always see, well, on Saturdays, you're working on your side hustle at the coffee shop.
Yeah.
So that starts what you just need as a basis for friendship is just someone you see regularly. But then where I think, myself included, I'm guilty of this, I think most of us have seen another woman and we think, oh, she's cool. I like to hang out with her. I like to have a drink with her. But you're afraid to make the first move or put it out there because it's also, it's a little scary. There's rejection in that too, if she's not looking for a new friend. So that's what you have to do. You just have to be brave and invite her somewhere or ask her to do something. That's the hitch that is hardest. And then, you might have to do it again.
Yeah. It's like dating.
It is. Like, I use the word courtship, but I think that that's true. There's that feeling when you meet a new friend, especially if you guys click, where it's like, ooh, I want this person to like me. I want to show her my best side. Like, I want us to do cool stuff together. Like, and it's fun like that too. Like, it's fun getting to know new people. So this is also fun, but there is that little bit of a hurdle at the very beginning where it's like, how do you, like, in a cool way, be like, do you want to be friends? Like that. It's just hard to be cool and do that. But I think most women are so grateful and thrilled when at the beginning of a new friendship, and if somebody takes the step of asking them to do something. I know that I am. I had a reading the other day with a writer I didn't know, and I liked her, and she liked me too. And then as soon as a couple of days later, it was like we emailed to be like, "Hey, you want to hang out sometime?" And it was like, oh, great, a new friend. Yes. I love this.
Yeah, no, I think that it's just it's the same idea. It's just putting yourself out there, and then knowing that this person, it might not be good timing or it might not click, but it's always just keep going, just keep going.
Totally.
So one of the parts of the book that really spoke to me was how we go through changes, because as I'm about to turn 40, and I live in a different place than other people, or as people, have babies or change jobs, there's just so many transitions. And I'm a professor, so I see students graduating and leaving and going through all these transitions themselves.
Yeah.
So that part really spoke to me. There was an example that you gave where through change, one friendship was diminished in some ways, like the quality might have changed or the sort of the status. And then another example was someone who worked with her friend and adapted with her friend. And so my question is this: what do you think it takes to be a friend who adapts with their friends through change?
I think it takes exactly that, being willing to adapt.
Yeah.
That part of the book, the concluding chapters about what do we do when our friendships shift and change. I was nervous about writing because, I'm writing this whole book about our friendships are so strong, they're so solid. Stop being negative about them, society.
Yeah.
But it is also true. Sometimes we let our friends go, or they let us go, or they fall apart, or they're just not as strong as they were 5 years before. Mm-hmm. And that's just the way life is. But I think what you have to do, and what I do, and what a lot of the women I spoke to, is you have to appreciate this person in whatever new life stage they're in, and try to learn from them in that stage, and they also learn from you in whatever you're doing. Like a lot of my friends who are moms, like I like seeing this new version of them. Like I don't necessarily want to go to their play dates because that doesn't sound fun. But I love learning about their kids and hearing what their kids did and hanging out with them and their kids. So it's just seeing your friend in this new stage, and it's probably someone you've been learning from and enjoying for a long time. So why would you stop just because a thing in their life has changed?
Yeah. Yeah, and I see it as it might be a new phase to the friendship, and it might expand the friendship. And so I think when my best friend adopted her child and adding in I have this child in my life that I can't imagine now not having in my life, or seeing me do the podcast is, that's a new phase of my life, and that, she's right there along with me. She created the logo. She's helping me with merchandise. She's been on the show. She's supportive. And so it's just one of those things that you never know what you might gain from that new era of people's lives, and so not missing out on that, because it might really deepen the friendship or connect you with other people. Like with her child, I feel connected to the child too, so I think that is really important. And sometimes, it might mean that the friendship isn't as frequent in terms of connection, but that might not necessarily mean it changes the quality of the friendship through the change,
Yeah, for sure.
So I was wondering, what do you think your life would be like without your friends? So you wrote this book, but I'm wondering a little bit more about you, Kayleen. What would you say your life would be like without the friends that you have in it?
I mean, it would be really lonely. My friends are responsible for a ton of my feeling of well-being and just everyday joy. If I didn't have them, like if I didn't have my group text that I could just send whatever thought I felt like at any moment and know that, one of them would respond, like I would miss that tremendously. If I didn't have my best friend Ruthie, who is all over the book, down the street, like that would suck.
Yeah, I know. It becomes like, who would we actually be if we didn't have our friends? That our friends make up a lot of who we are, or have shaped us in some sort of way.
Yeah, and I think they also encourage you to be who you really are.
Yes.
They bring out the core person that you are when you're being truest to yourself. At least if you have good friends who support whatever you're trying to do and help and lift you up and want you to go after everything you want, or to work through everything you need to work through. I think that they can really just be as a great mirror for how you want to see yourself.
Yeah. And so, I think that's a really good point, because I do think that I do spend a lot of time saying things like, who would we be without our friends? But I also really love this idea and strongly believe that with true friends, that they will let you be whoever you are and accept it and support it, and you can feel comfortable being who you are with them. So I do like that. I do say that a lot, like, who would we be without our friends? But it's like, but our friends also let us be exactly who we are, and I really like that idea. So what would you say is next for friendship and for you? What's next on the horizon?
I think for female friendship, I think drawing back to the idea that women have now taken charge of this, but I hope those stereotypes will just eventually fall away, and female friendship can be seen as what women are saying that it is, which is a super supportive relationship, and that idea that women are always competitive or catty, like that will just recede. I mean, that's my hope. I don't know. That may be too Pollyanna. But I do think that now that women are being very public about their friendships and standing up for them, I do think that might happen, or I hope that will happen. I don't want to use the word might. Yeah, and then as for me, I'd like to write another book. We'll see what happens, what I can come up with. But yeah, I'd like to keep writing books. This was my first one, and I loved the experience. And part of what I love is being able to talk to people like you about friendship and hearing from readers. Like I didn't have a lot of expectations about publishing the book, and was really blown away by the response from women saying, thank you. You said exactly what I wanted to say about friendship. And I just thought that was so cool, because I was just saying what I wanted to say about friendship.
Well, no, and I can echo probably some of the things that you've heard. That, I mean, I'm already someone who, like, I kind of joke that I came out of my mom's womb looking for friends. Like, where are my friends at? Like, where are you at? But that this, highlights a lot of things that I feel that I talk about on the podcast. things that I think are important to tear down are these stereotypes about friendships not being important, that, whatever the case might be. And it's a great book. I recommended it
Thank
on
you.
Instagram, on my personal account, but but I also have 2 copies of your book, and I am going to do a contest with my listeners about how they embrace their female friendships, and then we'll be, hopefully sharing the book with them. And so that's my hope too, because I think there isn't enough out there. And so, that you've added to the conversation, and that, my hope is that you'll continue to add to the conversation, and that I can be part of that as well. Just being able to, talk about it on my podcast. And I just appreciate it so much that, I feel like when I read it, I kind of felt like, and this might be a little cheesy, is like this kindred spirit. I was like, I feel like there's someone out there like me who thinks the same things, is just doing it in a different way. I talk about it in the classroom or on my podcast, and you're doing it in the book. But I feel like the more people that are doing it, then maybe we can get to that wish of diminishing those stereotypes about friendship by just having these conversations. So
I love what you're doing.
I love what you're doing. Let's have a love fest. Well, I was going to ask, was there anything that you wanted to say or talk about that I didn't bring up?
No, I mean, the one thing that has kept coming up now, especially in this time as I'm doing this, is the idea of what's happening with Me Too and Time's Up and women banding together. And I think that's really interesting as it relates back to the title of the book, which text me when you get home.
Yes.
Because texting when you get home is something women said to each other privately. Like, your best friend said it to you last night as you said goodbye. And most women have said it to each other or heard it a bunch of times. But, maybe men hadn't even heard it or still haven't heard it. Like my dad had no idea what it meant when I said that this was the title of my book. And I think that's, we were keeping our friendship and our bonds private and just between us. And now I'm watching as we are standing up together and making these bonds public in a way that I think is very, very cool and will help us maintain the prominence of friendship or the where we're trying to elevate friendship to. I think the standing up publicly and even us having this conversation is part of that. So I just think this has been a cool evolution.
Yeah.
From where I started writing the book and even from like where we started back with Mean Girls or with Friends being such a side player in rom-coms. Like, if you just watch the evolution, I do think it's really cool. And I don't think there's any going back.
No, let's keep going. And when I think of the text me when you get home, it reminds me of I'll wait until you get inside the house. Right? Like, when your friends drop you off at the door and they're like, wait until okay, she's in. Right? It reminds me of that sort of extension of that, which I think is, you're right, that might not be something that men have experienced, but that is something that I feel like we are socialized into, and that I think as a safety, but I also think that it shows a deep level of love and care for the people who mean the most to us. And I love the idea that let's go public. Let's go public. So thank you, Kayleen, so much for talking to me. It means so much to be able to talk about friendship and to know that there's other people who care about it in ways that I do, and that bringing them to a forefront and really celebrating these deep connections among women. So I just want to say thank you so much for your time and for writing the book.
Thank you for having me on. It was a wonderful conversation, and I love what you're doing as far as supporting friendship. Thank you.
Well, thank you. All right. Thanks. Have a good one.
Bye.
Bye. Friends, those who love on friendship like me, let's get information. I mean, I was so hype after reading the book the multiple times that I did. And then, of course, talking with Kayleen, like I said, it felt like my birthday came early, and it totally did. I've always felt like I've been the friendship gal my whole life, being shushed in my classes when I ask about, what about friends, when we're talking about romantic relationships. But I am so happy with the progress of this podcasts and all of you awesome folks who joined me in the movement to love on our friends. But there was a moment with Kayleen where I was like, I'm going into battle with another soldier, if you will, and that was an amazing feeling. And I think that our discussion brings out a lot of excellent points, those that are also discussed in the book. And I want to make it clear, I am recommending this book. I was not asked to do so. My mom got it for me for Valentine's Day. I read it, and then I immediately went to the webpage and contacted her to see if I could talk to her because she was someone that I absolutely wanted to have on the podcast. So I highly recommend reading Text Me When You Get Home. Like I said, it's something that I devoured. I read it in one sitting, and that's because it's obviously something I'm interested in, but it's also well written. There is this love for friends. There's this love for why should we have to give up something that means so much, where we get so much social support. I love the significant commentary from people who've written books about friendship, and they make comments about where their books were and how we have changed since then, or maybe how a book might have set up an expectation like calling someone a mean girl. I also think it's really important to see how Kayleen weaves in her experiences, but also how she brings in the cultural shifts in pop culture. You can't be what you can't see, but there's a lot more media that is happening, and she brings that to light where you're like, oh, now I can see Broad City. We finally have 2 female leads, and it's all about their friendship. How many examples do we have? If you can only think of a couple, that's not enough. When we are just, the list is long, then we've made it to where we need to be. So I just want to make it really clear that I highly recommend this book. And because I do, I bought 2 copies of her book for a Best Forevers giveaway. So contest time, right? I want to hear your stories about the evolution or the triumph of your friendships. Tell me about it on Instagram, in the Best Forevers Facebook group or Facebook page, or on Twitter using hashtag TextMeKayleen, which is hashtag TextMe Kayleen, and I'll put your name in a drawing to win one of the 2 books. You may post multiple times, as I also want to hear about all of your experiences because you know how I love friendship. But be sure you include the hashtag and you post by 11:59 p.m. Eastern Standard Time on June 15th, 2018. The next day, I will do a live video of me doing the drawing, and then I will mail out the books to the 2 winners. So I hope that you will embrace and reclaim your friendships and share with me the triumphs and the evolutions. I know Kayleen would want to hear it. I want to hear it. Other people need to know how important our friendships are. So I sure hope you'll be a part of that contest. And so before we leave today, though, folks, I think there are a few things that I wanted to pull together as some thoughts, maybe some questions to pose based on our conversation, but also based on our book. So those of you who enter the contest, or those of you who are on Amazon, and the link to buy the book is in the show notes if you are interested in, or you can just Google Kayleen Schaefer or Text Me When You Get Home, and you'll be able to find it on the internet. But there are a few things that you can look forward to in reading, or if you've already read the book, then these are some reminders. We are placing harmful stereotypes and expectations on girls. And as we talked about, it can be a disservice to see girls as mean girls or catty and placing them in this box that they're aggressive in exclusion and gossip and other things that boys can do as well and do as well. And so one of the things that I think is especially harmful is not just setting up this expectation for how girls should behave. So we might actually see mean girls because if we socialize girls that way and we place those expectations and stereotypes on them, they feel like they have to enact it. That is their identity. That is their function as a woman. That's their function as a friend. But it's also a disservice to all the people interacting with girls, right? It's anyone who believes that stereotype. It could be other boys, other girls, moms, dads, people in the workplace. It doesn't matter. If you see women as catty, you might visualize them in that sense or approach them in that way or assume they're that way when it might not be the case. It might just be a bias that we have based on these stereotypes. So we just have to think about what type of friends we want our children to have, right? I'm just saying everyone. What type of friendships do we want? Do we want them to have supportive, loving, caring friendships where there's a lot of fun and respect and no judgment? That sounds like a great friendship. And that should be something that both boys, girls, men, women, whoever can enjoy. And to think that friendships might be something that have to go away, why should we have to give up anything? We rely on our friends. Why should marriage or any other thing say that is a time to say, you know what, I don't have friends anymore? Because I can imagine that for many of you listening right now, that you have children and you have a partner, or whether you have a partner and no children, or you have children and no partner, that no matter what, I think you can tell me and you can count on your hand, and you're thinking of the quality people in your life that you call friends and have your back. As Amanda was saying in episode 28, Desperately Seeking Friends in Mommyhood, we need to have someone we know who has our back, that we know that we would give up everything for and go to them, and that we know that they would give up everything and come to us when we need them, that we rely on our friends. There's no reason we should have to give them up. And I do enjoy the conversation that Kayleen and I had about finding friends, that there can be a lot of pressure to find friends and to have a tribe and a Taylor Swift squad and that sort of thing. But I do think it is natural to label relationships, this is my partner, this is my mom. I mean, it is, I guess it is very possession-based, like mine. It's like Gollum from Lord of the Rings, right? But we do have my best friend, or I love, as Mindy Kaling talks about, the different tiers of friendship. But maybe we do put too much pressure to have sort of this, friendship. And maybe some people listening to this podcast have felt like I have placed pressure on them. And I hope that it's not the case. That's not my intent. All I'm saying is, let's love on our friends. Let's figure out how we can work through things with our friends. How can we help each other find friends, whatever the case might be? I just know that friends are important and everyone should be able to have them. And how cool do you sound when you're looking for friends? Have you ever gone up to a friend, so do you have anyone you can set me up with? What, like a date? Yeah, but for friends, right? Even Bumble has a friendship app. There's lots of different ways to find friends, but it can be really challenging as adults. But we just have to put ourselves out there, much like we would dating, and keep at it, because there's a whole sea of people, and, you go fishing for 2 minutes, you're not going to find the person you might be looking for, the person that you really connect with. But if you're vibing with someone, why not say, hey, let's go get some coffee? Oh, you don't like coffee? How about tea? Oh, you don't like tea? How about wine? Right? Find where you can have some common ground and get out there and be friends. And I think that it will be helpful as we move towards embracing all of our friendships, no matter the gender. Because when we do that, then what we're going to do is we're going to see more and more stories in pop culture. As we talked about, you can't be what you can't see. We need more stories about friendship. And now that there are more women telling stories and directing stories and behind the camera writing the stories, that we might be able to see more of these stories in front of us in our TV shows, in our movies, whatever the case might be. Hopefully in some more books written by Kayleen Schaefer, right? That we need to hear about people's experiences, and we need to hear about the stories so that we can diminish stereotypes and expectations indicating that girls are mean, or that they're frenemies that cannot be in competition unless it's over men, or, we have to get beyond that. And one of the main ways, and I think this is something that we need to look to, and this is where I start to have some questions. And I say this a lot. We do not have a script about how to communicate with our friends about difficult topics and conflicts. We don't have a script for how to make new friends. We don't have a script. And what that means is we don't have these go-to, even if it's a little cliche, we don't have these go-to entry points or exit lines or conversation pieces that would reflect friendship. I think we all have an idea of what we might do and say in a job interview, or what we might do and say on a first date. We have scripts for that, which means it's something that is common. People have been through that experience. I mean, how many of you have experienced a breakup? If you were the person who was dumping, you might be like, it's not you, it's me, right? If you're the dumped, you're like, oh, not this line again, right? We have scripts for it. And so perhaps we need to work on these scripts, and through the media creating the TV scripts and the movie scripts, we then have a communication script for how we can have our true, real friendships and how we talk about things. And so that's my main question, or my main charge is, after reading your book, I just want us to find a way to diminish those stereotypes. And I think the way that we can do that and set people up for success in friendship is really considering the ways that we can talk about friendship with our friends. So thanks for listening to Best Forevers, a podcast for kindred spirits. I'm so grateful for all the friends and mates in starting the podcast, all the support received, and for every single listen, every single like, retweet, favorite, share, whatever the case is. From the bottom of my heart, bottom of my friendship heart is just full of warmth. It makes me so happy. Thank you so much. Be sure to check out Best Forevers on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Best Forevers Pod. And please share your friendship stories by checking out bestforeverspod.com/surveys or by emailing me at bestforeverspod@gmail.com, because you know I'm all about hearing your amazing friendship stories. If you like what you have in your ear holes, you might consider subscribing, rating, and reviewing Best Forevers on Apple Podcasts or whatever podcast app you listen to. Or if you really want to get in and be a soldier in the movement and support the movement to love on our friends more and the podcast, you might consider going to patreon.com/bestforeverspod, where you can support me and Best Forevers and that movement. There are lots of cool perks and goals that I'm trying to meet. So check it out. I would love to call you friends with benefits. And folks, I have to tell you, if you've seen my Twitter, Kate Cosgrove, my best friend, the amazing woman, artist. She's so inspiring. She's so talented. And she took the time to make a new Best Forevers sticker, and it has my producer, Ferguson, in it. So if you want to be part of the movement and you just want a cute sticker of Ferguson, then you might consider heading over to Patreon and checking it out. It was a great celebration for episode 30 to have Kayleen Schaefer, author of Text Me When You Get Home, on the podcast. Because without our friends, who would we be? But as Kayleen noted, we are exactly who we are because our friends encourage us to be who we truly are. And that is something we can all say amen to. So go out there, encourage your friends, support your friends, and don't forget to say, text me when you get home.